They say the next big thing is here, that the revolution's near. But to me it seems quite clear that it's all just a little bit of history repeating.
Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Holy cow, tanks? Tanks. We're all sending tanks. Everybody's got tanks. We're sending tanks. And this is the best possible way we can help peace and prosperity in the world. Tanks. We're sending tanks. Ukraine, right? Germany is at war with Russia. There's an announcement there. Joe Biden announcing Abrams tanks, sending tanks to Ukraine. Don't worry, though, Canada. Our tanks don't work, so we can't send them. Whew. Thank goodness. Thank goodness for liberal incompetence for once, right? We actually have an agreement with the Dutch government that we bought the tanks from for maintenance until 2027, but the tanks still don't work. Why don't the tanks work? I don't know why the tanks don't work. Vicious neglect. Could that be it? Or just incompetence? I think it's probably neglect. I think it's purposeful neglect. What else? Real Canadian Footloose with Sleds. Oshawa is banning Sleds. I reported on this a couple of weeks ago. Pfizer redefines gain of function and admits to it. This is a big bombshell, massive bombshell. Inflation and the economy are top of mind going into an election. The newspapers are speculating that we might be looking at an election in the spring. I don't think so. Although maybe. The other thing that people are speculating on is Trudeau stepping down before the next election. I don't think so, and I'll show you why that as well. And a big Burger King franchisor had 90 stores shutting down. So that's inflation taking a toll. That's American, but it's still, Burger King is a part of our heritage, man. Burger King, I grew up with going to Burger King, I think every day for 2 years. I was a very healthy teenager, but you needed to have Burger King before you go to work at Taco Bell and have Taco Bell for later dinner. It was terrible. But Burger Kings are shutting down, and that is a sign of the economy, and not a good economy. But first, let's talk about tanks. Here's Joe Biden talking about how, well, this is a various Joe Biden clip. So here we go. It is very interesting because well, here we go. I was going to make it big.
We're going to send in offensive equipment and have planes and tanks and trains going in with American pilots and American crews. Just understand. Don't kid yourself, no matter what you all say. That's called World War III. Today, I'm announcing that the United States will be sending 31 Abrams tanks to Ukraine.
I've done some dumb things, and I'll do dumb things again.
So that's the Joe Biden clip, and it is real. That is a real clip. I had another clip of just him announcing the Abrams tanks, but this one was cut together with the previous clip of him saying that, make no mistake, tanks on the ground, that's World War III. I hope not. Germany says that they're at war with Russia. Here we go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Minister.
Yep. Sorry, that was starting at the end. We'll start again.
And therefore, I've said already in the last days, yes, we have to do more to defend Ukraine. Yes, we have to do more also on tanks. But the most important and the crucial part is that we do it together and that we do not do the blame game in Europe, because we are fighting a war against Russia and not against each other. Thank you.
Right? So to me, I feel like arming another country with Abrams tanks or sending in Leopard tanks or anything like that, tanks. Here's the same clip again. Anything to do with that should have a formal declaration of war, some kind of debate in Congress or some kind of debate in Canada as well. Like I'm talking about US, they should have to declare war before they're sending Abrams tanks. But all right, it's not my country or anything like that. Canada's not sending any tanks, so that's good. But if we're sending a US built anti-aircraft or anti-missile system, shouldn't we have a conversation about how much money we're going to spend in Ukraine and for what purpose, to what end? We have to defend them at all costs. Why exactly? Here is the reason that we're not sending tanks: because they don't work. Diane Fracas says Justin Trudeau's Liberals keep proving they are amateurs. Trudeau and his cabinet are headed for the scrap heap, maybe because of years of incompetent governance. I hope so. First, Ukraine is asking countries with German-made Leopard 2 tanks to donate them so it can mount a critically important counteroffensive this spring to drive the Russians out of their country. Kiev needs 300 of these battle tanks, and nations are stepping up, but Canada, with 82 tanks, has not responded yet. Reports by the Canadian Forces College in 2018 and 2022 say the tanks have been neglected and are useless. Quote, the maintenance and repair needs of these tanks far exceed Canada's current capacity, and consequently, most of the tanks are inoperable and cannot be deployed. Given a shortage of specialized components, some tanks have even been cannibalized for parts, making them totally useless. Post columnist Adam Zivo writes, summarizing one of the reports. In 2007, Canada acquired 100 slightly used Leopard 2 tanks from the Dutch government, from the Dutch Army for $650 million, and paid another $650 million for a 20-year service contract until 2027. They were deployed in Afghanistan until Canada's mission ended there in 2014, and now it appears there are only 82 left, and they are warehoused across the country in Montreal, Fredericton, and Edmonton. When asked, Trudeau said he had nothing to announce. Germany is supposed to approve re-export of its tanks and has said it won't refuse if Poland or others wish to give them to Ukraine, but Canada's tanks are likely inoperable due to Ottawa's neglect. As for Ukraine, Canada has provided more than $1 billion in aid to Ukraine since last year's invasion. That's $1 billion that nobody asked me about. Last week, another eye-popping report surfaced from Carleton University, which said Ottawa spent at least $22.2 billion. But this is a separate story from the tanks, and we will not get distracted. So our tanks aren't working, and it's a small mercy, but I still think we should have a conversation about how much money we're sending to Ukraine when we have First Nation places without clean drinking water. We've got people who are homeless. We've got hotels being bought, people crossing our border illegally. And Justin Trudeau doesn't like hearing that, but it's true. And so we should fix our own house before we start pretending we can solve someone else's war. Alberta says, with all the highly complex tanks going to Ukraine, does anyone there know how to operate or maintain them? It takes a long time to learn and a complex supply chain to arm and maintain them. Okay, let's review. Canada bought tanks from the Dutch. The Dutch agreed to maintain the tanks until 2027, but Canada now says, we can't maintain the tanks. We don't have the capacity. What happened to the maintenance agreement? Could we call them up and say, the muffler's blown? I don't know what happened, man. We were driving it and then it made this noise. It was blah, blah, blah. And can you guys come and have a look at it? We'd really like to donate them to Ukraine. Could we just do that? And maybe they'd come and fix them. And then we could make up our mind about donating them to Ukraine after they're fixed. What, I mean, how does that work? But further, would the maintenance that a country like Canada, who's not currently embroiled in an active hot war with Russia, we can't maintain our own tanks, but we're going to send them over to Ukraine to be used as cannon fodder for the Russians? Why? Does this make sense to anybody? I also read a treatment talking about how useless this number of tanks would be because the front in Kiev, Belarus, all of the fronts is like 850 kilometers. And the person estimated that you'd need at least 900 tanks to make the difference that Kiev is saying that these 300 tanks would make, so on and so forth. It's a whole bunch of rainbows and puppies and nonsense. And it's not actually real. It just looks like they're blowing up other people's ability to defend themselves. Maybe. I mean, the U.S. could build all those tanks again in a weekend, right? Like they love tanks. They love building tanks. But it's a legitimate question. Who is going to maintain these tanks? Where is the supply chain going to come from to rearm these tanks? Do we have Leopard 2 tanks, munitions just sitting around, right? Are we just going to send those to Ukraine and maybe with some Dutch mechanics? We called these guys and we're just forwarding them to you. Take the phone. Zelensky. Now that he's got tanks, well, he wants air support. I mean, obviously, we've got tanks, guys. You got to protect them, right? You don't want missiles coming in and blowing up the Abrams tanks. They have no protection against that. You need air support. Talk TV says, after the West agrees to send tanks to Kiev and President Zelensky calls for long-range missiles and fighter jets, how far should Britain go to help Ukraine defeat Russia? I think, personally, and this is me, so, take it for what it is. It's just the opinion of me. I think that all support for Ukraine should be drawn down to zero. And I think every country should say, Ukraine, you guys should negotiate peace. We'll help you negotiate peace. Canada's great at setting meetings. We've got a lovely meeting room we could set up for you right now. No problems. And also we've paid for Zoom. So all you have to do is join this Zoom chat and we'll talk pre-meeting details, right? You can show up with your entourage and then everybody gets to show up with one representative, right? Nobody's armed. I don't know how that works, but apparently Canada's great at setting meetings. But no, that's not what's going to happen. They're going to send fighter jets. And Joe Biden's prediction of World War III, I hope is wrong. I really do. I hope is wrong. I don't want that. I don't want a draft to find mechanics to maintain the tanks that are maintaining the front lines in Kiev. Not in Canada. I don't want that. It sounds like, and I've seen video, and there's rumors all over Twitter talking about how there is a draft and people are getting very aggressive. People are driving around and almost kidnapping men who are of fighting age to be on the front lines. And so that's scary. That's something to note, right? What's going to happen? Escalation is not good, and that's the direction we're going in. And so that's not good. Michael says, breaking, Putin is negotiating with the Taliban on the purchase of U.S. coalition military equipment that was left behind in Afghanistan as a result of the United States' hasty withdrawal in 2021 for use in the war against the Ukraine. $7.12 billion in aircraft, vehicles, and weapons. They'll be better kitted out than we are, than Canadians are. Their tanks will work. Jeepers creepers, right? So I think that it's interesting that, and I don't know if this is legit. This guy's got a blue check mark, but every minute I've got a blue check mark, right? So who knows? But this report is interesting. Take it with a grain of salt. I don't know if it's real. So he doesn't have very many followers. So who knows? But I saw that and take it with a grain of salt. But that would be interesting, right? Escalation is no good. I don't like it. It is not ideal at all. So what's going to happen? It seems we're not going to be pushing for peace. That's my short-term prediction.